Now, Hamas officials have told Sky News that a ceasefire bringing an end to the 11 days of bombing across the Israel-Gaza border could be reached within a day or so. Since the Israeli-Palestinian conflict began, 228 Palestinians and 12 Israelis have been killed. That includes, we think, about 66 children. Well, let's talk to the Israeli ambassador to the UK, Tzipi Hotovely. Good to see you this morning, Ambassador. Look, Hamas claims to be wanting this ceasefire, claims there are talks underway. Your Prime Minister saying he is determined to continue the offensive. Why is that?
Well, you know, Israel didn't want this conflict to begin with. It was a pure provocation of a radical jihadi terror organization, Hamas, that wanted to shoot our kids, our women, our men. Millions of Israelis spent the last 10 days in bomb shelters because the whole country was under attack of over 3,000 rockets. The reason Israel wants to make sure that those kind of attacks won't be coming back again and again. So we want to restore quiet. We definitely don't want to be in a war, but we would like not to have a quick fix. We would like to have something that is sustainable so our people can get back to normal life.
Well, what is a sustainable solution to this? Unless you really sort out the whole border disputes, the land disputes, the two-state solution. I mean, that's the only long-term solution, isn't it?
The only problem is that when people look at the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and they miss this ingredient of radical terrorist organizations that is not interested in any political solution, such as Hamas. Hamas is recognized by the British government as a terror organization. And as you know, part of Hamas' charter is to deny the right of Israel to exist in any borders. So it's not really a matter of what's the political solution they're trying to achieve. They're not trying to achieve political solutions. They're a terror organization trying to work with violence against civilians, targeting civilians in Israel, targeting schools and kindergartens in Israel. The only reason we didn't have hundreds of kids getting killed from our side was thanks to the fact that Israel was using very good and sophisticated technology of Iron Dome, as you know.
I mean, if this is as sort of blatant as you say, with Hamas not wanting anything other than the destruction of Israel, why are they going into ceasefire talks, and why? You know, ultimately, unless you wipe Hamas out, there's got to be a ceasefire of some sort. So you're going to have to talk to them at some point, aren't you?
We need to dismantle Hamas capabilities. What happened in the last military operation, Protective Edge, was that Israel reached many years of peace and quiet on its cities. And we would like to have, as I said, a long-term quiet and peace in Israel. We wouldn't like to see ourselves coming back to this bloodshed in 2 weeks' time, because this is what happens when you don't have a deep solution, when you don't have a real work of what the Israeli army is doing. As you know, we're targeting just the military targets of Hamas. We're trying to fight the tunnels. As you know, Hamas was investing amounts of money in building these underground tunnels of terror, and we are trying to distract that.
But forgive me, we've seen 60 plus Palestinian children killed. We think 30 to 40 mothers killed as a result of this offensive. We've seen tower blocks being brought down, including tower blocks that the media were staying in. I mean, not that the media should be at the forefront of everything here, but you know, these were not all purely military targets, were they?
No, well, that's the problem when you're dealing with a terror organization. They're using regular civilian facilities, civilian objects, as human shields, and they're using the children and they're using the media center as a place where they locate their headquarters. And as you know, we do everything according to international law, and whenever we target a military target, this is according to what the international law allows us when we are fighting terror organization using those facilities. I would like to say something about the children. You know, I'm a mother of young children. Israeli children are being targeted for the last 10 days, and they couldn't get back to normal life. So I would like to say every loss of a child is a tragedy, definitely from both sides, but we're doing everything to protect life. The only reason we get to see this loss, and the Prime Minister actually mentioned that yesterday, that 25% of the rockets being fired to Israel are being misfired, and they ended up with killing innocent Palestinians. Now look at this. We're speaking about almost 4,000 rockets being fired on Israel. So think about almost 1,000 rockets being fired on the Gaza side, and they are killing people. So this is Hamas to be blamed for the fact that those children are being killed. This is Hamas that instead of investing the international large amount of money that Gaza is accepting, is building terror tunnels instead of investing it in schools and facilities.
Yeah, but you're talking about Israel working within international law. The United Nations Security Council Resolution 2334 says Israel... I mean, I know there are the causes of this are very deep and very detailed, and I can't even pretend to know anywhere near enough about it. But 2334 says Israel's settlement activity, which is a trigger for some of this at least, constitutes a flagrant violation of international law and has no legal validity. Well, you can't stick to international law on one front and ignore it on the other, can you?
Look, it's so simple to answer this question because in Gaza there are no settlements, zero settlements since 2005. Israel did a major concession in 2005, doing disengagement, uprooting 8,000 Israelis from their homes because we wanted peace to come. Some people pretended and said Gaza will be a new Singapore for the Middle East. And look what happened. There were democratic elections in the Palestinian Authority. Hamas won this cruel terror organization, and look what happened to Gaza. They destroyed Gaza. They decided to keep on fighting and shooting and firing rockets on Israel. And this is the problem. It has nothing to do to settlements. When Israel is doing this work of uprooting settlements and the results are more fire, more terror, we need to ask ourselves, is it really that issue? Well, the truth is, of course, not. This is not the issue of settlements. In Gaza, there are no settlements.
Look, if you want things to calm down, if you want, you know, ultimately the Palestinian people to reject Hamas, ultimately, how do you go about it with the amount of damage you're causing? We've had cameras on the ground in Gaza City, and when you look at the devastation, when you look at the, you know, the infrastructure being wiped out, the electricity, the water supplies, all of these issues, it makes that incredibly difficult for anyone to live in Gaza, doesn't it? It makes it that's going to do nothing more but increase hatred of Israel and what it's doing.
Well, unfortunately, there is no other way to dismantle Hamas military capabilities. Think about it. We are in a situation where a small country like Israel, all its major cities being under attack, 3,000 rockets, as I mentioned, and people cannot have normal life. Now, any other country in the world would have acted like Israel. And in order to defend ourselves, when we're fighting terror organization, you need to make sure that those capabilities won't be in action. And the reason we're doing it, and again, we're warning the people, look at those buildings that are falling. They are Hamas military targets, and we make sure no casualties in civilian level will be the result of those attacks. And Israel is doing a lot. Israel is doing a lot.
That's not true, is it? I mean, there are civilian casualties.
No, it's absolutely true, because we're speaking about massive buildings that all its population gets warning from Israel. They can leave and are actually leaving. And whenever we get to see the few casualties that there are, it's still because Hamas is using these people as human shield, not protecting them, as opposed to Israel is protecting its people, doing everything to protect life. This is the difference. This is a morality issue. But Israel is a moral country fighting for democratic values, when on the other hand, you see those radicals, complete radicals, want to make the Middle East go back to the Middle Ages. But they're not interested in progress. They're not interested in democratic values.
But there is concern about, an international concern about the Israeli response being disproportionate on the basis that one can presume, you know, all the rocket attacks against Israel, as you say, thousands and thousands of rocket attacks.
Could you live with that?
But this isn't about me, is it? But
that's the problem. You don't feel sympathy to millions of people being attacked.
It's not about me feeling sympathy or not with all of this, but Iron Dome has responded particularly well. Now, that's not an excuse for anything. It doesn't eliminate any of the concern. But then people say, is it still necessary to decimate Gaza in the way that Israel has been doing?
Iron Dome is not a solution to normal life. Because, as you know, the only reason people are not getting hurt is because they keep on having this unnormal life of sitting in bomb shelters. My parents spent the last 10 days in a bomb shelter, and they live in the center of Israel. This is unacceptable. No country in the world would have accepted the idea that millions of people will be sitting in bomb shelters because a radical terror organization is firing. This is the duty of every democratic state to protect its people. The people of Israel expect their government to protect them. I'm sure the British government would have done the same, and the American government would have done the same. And I tell you, our friends in the world say it's unacceptable, the idea of thousands of rockets being fired on legitimate, a democratic country wants to live in peace. It's not legitimate.
You say other countries would have done the same, including the American government. Well, President Biden's been on the phone, we think 4 times now, to Prime Minister Netanyahu. Is Israel going to start to listen to... because obviously America is a key, if not your key ally. You've got to start to listen to President Biden, haven't you?
America is absolutely a key ally, and they respect so much our rights for self-defense. Look at the last 10 days. America was protecting us at the Security Council of the UN. All those discussions going on at the UN arena. America stand next to Israel, stand beside Israel, and said Israel has the right to protect itself. Hamas is committing war crimes. And this is where we see our best friend in the world, and we appreciate the fact America stands beside Israel. This is
but they're also saying it now has to stop.
So all I'm saying is we're not interested in a war, as I said. We're not interested in ongoing conflict, but we are now having, we're sharing with the Americans important intelligence. We're sharing with them our needs in order to dismantle Hamas military capabilities. And I'm sure it's really a matter of tactics. This is not the big question. The big question, the Americans completely agree, this is a radical terror organization fighting committing war crimes, and we need to do everything to protect our people. So I believe that Israel is doing everything in its power to protect its people.
Ambassador, good to see you this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much.